Backstory: so this goes back a fair few years. Whilst working for a call center, we heard a buzz about a big new client coming on board which was going to be outsourcing their in-house support. Naturally, it was a great opportunity for me since I was a pretty tech-capable guy. Troubleshooting and support was natural to me since growing up. I was always around tech products etc. and got the job moving to a more senior role providing second-level support alongside assisting the training department. Whilst I did want to be moved to training since it would be a better use of my time, I didn't mind second-level support. I was good at my job and cleared my workload quite easily so I could be left alone. During my downtime I would make installation diagrams for first-level staff for reference which was saved on a personal USB since it wasn't authorized by our client and never would be. It didn't matter to me since it made my job easier. Over the coming months, more people started relying on my diagrams, including the training department, so I decided to create a subdomain on my site and host an interactive version which was basic but it worked. You got to select your equipment and what services you needed and it would give you a full breakdown which cut down my workload significantly. Since it wasn't sanctioned by the client, I didn't want to make it known that it was being used in work linked through to an external site, so I created a new HTML file within Frame embedded which was stored on a shared drive which every member of the first, second and training lines could access. This meant the actual URL now was external but wasn't visible. It was crude but it didn't matter since no one in those days knew much about finding curls. It became so successful, it got rolled out as part of the system's training. The training department assumed it all came from the client and because of turnover, they never really questioned it. Now since it became part of the training structure, it really made it more valuable. Since the client doesn't get involved in training, the content is of no relevance to them, only results. During my downtime, I'd redo some with clearer guides and update photos with the latest products so our staff could see exactly where connections and buttons were. For a few years, everything was great, pay was mediocre but the environment was good and I got comfy till we got called to a meeting. Everyone. Our client has decided that as a company, our rates were not in line with their requirements and looking to outsource to another country and we will be made redundant. Personally for me it was great since the payout was based on years of service, however the training team are no longer needed alongside the second level so my time was up sooner rather than later. I got called into a second meeting and told that I will be handling the training at a higher rate of pay but must follow the training guide to the letter. Whilst I was introduced in training to new starters and helped them during that time, I had to sit and go through all the material which was 80% all based around the system and guides I had built. I tried to explain to my line manager and client that the main bulk of the training wasn't actually supplied and not sanctioned but no one seemed interested. I was met with a cold. The training packs have been a vital part of your company's ethos so you should have no problem in making it work, so I did. Since everything in the shared folders are and were going to be passed over to the new support center, so was my localized HTML file. The new office were trained, the first, second and training departments were all primed and signed off ready to take over so we moved to provide 80% of the workload to them whilst we were in this transition. Shortly after, things were going great, I was put in charge of a small team who elected to stay on while we completed the handover till I got called into a meeting. My services will no longer be needed and I will be offered an earlier redundancy, however before doing so, I need to ensure that I sign a data protection form to ensure the company's secrets are protected and any content would need to be deleted or destroyed. I explained that part of the core training pack was not provided by the client and generated in-house by myself. This wasn't good enough or deemed to be acceptable, so since I was being paid an early redundancy, I decided it wasn't worth the fight since they were no longer a client of ours. Naturally I left and shortly after moved to a new branch locally and kept in touch with some of the staff who had been placed elsewhere. The client had moved on and things seemed to be okay. No big deal. During that time, I got an email from my domain and hosting provider that they are increasing their prices, so I decided I wasn't going to bother to renew and let my domain expire. After all, it was more just because it interested me building and hosting a website. A few days later I caught up with one of the staff who got kept on who couldn't stop laughing. That 80% part of the training pack resource was no longer online. The content couldn't be loaded or found anywhere. The ex-client wasn't happy that they have a whole call center who cannot provide the same if any support because the systems cannot load. I was lazy and backing up things was always low on my to-do list, so everything I had built was gone. Needless to say, the ex-client was in a right mess and now would have to essentially rehire everyone they could. However, the company I work for had already let many members go or replaced the offices with new clients. I was contacted pretty swiftly to be rehired back, which I would have accepted for a higher rate of pay mainly because it was my work initially, which is the main reason why the entire campaign worked so well. It was instantly refused, so it was pretty much cut and dry for me. It took the company about 6 months of hell to get back to a somewhat acceptable standard, and after that, dissolved the outsourced call center again and possibly went to stock some more prey. Shame really told. Built a system hosted externally which ended up being the holy grail for our tech support till the client pulled our plug and requested I remove/destroy anything related to them to protect their brand/product/business.